What's up, everybody? Let's take a look at the stock market today. Look at this. I said back on July 1st, there was some strong indications the stock market's going to pull back. Well, looky here. Sure enough, look at this big down day. At the time I was shooting this video, down $37, a little less than 1%. You can see there on the right, I'm up $476 on this position, $931 for the day. So let's talk about once you do get into a profitable position like you see me holding here. I'm holding 5 contracts. I shorted those 5 contracts. If you look really carefully on the right there, you'll see a POS short -5 in red letters. In the middle of the screen, you can see what the high was, 4384, and you see this kind of green oval with a +5, TRSTP. What is that all about? That's called a trailing stop, guys. Let's talk about that. What do you do? How do you protect your profits? Once your position gets profitable, how do you go about protecting it? Do you just leave it there and you monitor it, throughout the day and night? These are future contracts, so for those that don't know how future contracts work, they trade pretty much 24 hours a day. Well, 23 out of 24 hours a day. Okay? So if in the middle of the night when you're sleeping, how do you keep an eye on it? What do you do? Keep one eye open? I wonder what my contract positions are doing, eh? Yeah, that doesn't work, right? So what we do is, what we can, there are other ways to do this, but this is one of the ways you can do it, is you place an order. In my case, since I shorted these contracts, micro S&P 500 contracts, and since they're shorted, you would buy to close. That may sound confusing, but whenever you short something, you have to buy back to close it, okay? Whenever you long something, you would sell it to close the position or get out of the position, right? But whenever you're shorting, guys and gals, you have to what's called cover the shorts or buy back, or just buy, in this case, contracts, futures contracts, okay, for the ones that you shorted. Basically, you have to go to the other side of the ledger, right? Basic plus and minuses is all we're really talking about. If you did a -5, you need a +5 to close it off in this case. Okay? So a trailing stop, in this case, if you look in the middle of the screen there, big white rectangle with some words in the middle of it, says buy +5 MESU21. That's simply micro contracts for September of 2021. And then it says TRSTP, that means trailing stop, and it has mark +10. What does that mean? Well, that means at the time I placed this order, that I was ensuring I was locking in my profits by stating that wherever the current market price is, if it goes $10 away from the market price, meaning up, right? Because remember, I shorted. If it went up $10 from the market price at the time I placed this order, then my position would automatically close, okay? And I would take the profits locked in if there are profits at $10 above that current market price, which in my case there were. Okay, so you got to do a little bit of math there to figure out, how far do you want your stop to be? Okay. You can see on the screen there to the right, it says my average price is 4333.8. Okay. In the middle of the screen, you see it says 4324.25. So if we add $10 to that, or 10 points, you would get 4334. Right? 4334. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. No. That 4324 is the actual stop. Is the computer TD Ameritrade's platform, TOS, is keeping track of where the stop actually be. So in this case, my stop, I would stop out and close the position, my position at 4324.25. Okay, so now look to the right again at the average price, 433.8. Okay. And then from that, we're going to subtract 4324. And what do we get? Well, we get about 9-ish. Right? Not quite 10, but 9 something. right? So I'm already 9 points in my favor. If it hits the 4324, I would be up 9 and some points. Okay? So in futures contracts, there's a multiplication going on. I'm not going to get into all that because you can do your own due diligence on figuring out what the multipliers are for whatever futures contract you're going to trade. But if you look to the right there, you can see at the moment I'm up $476. Am I happy about that? Yeah, of course I'm happy. I'm profitable. Now, if this position were to close at 4324, I wouldn't be up 476. It'd be more like about $280 or something like that. I don't know exactly. I'd have to look at the numbers. Looks like it's about $238. So if it does come back and touch this 4324 and a quarter, I'd stop out at 4324. I mean at $238 worth of profit. I'm fine. That's good. That's good. You know, I'm not complaining if it happens. So what is the trailing part of trailing stop? What does that mean? What does trailing stop mean? It simply means in this case, the further the price goes down, this stop will move $10 in parallel. Okay? So you'll notice on the screen down there to the right, it's kind of hard to see it, but it says, well, I'm sorry, in the middle of the screen and up in the very kind of the top part of the screen, you'll see it says 4314.75 in big red numbers near the top of the screen, kind of in the middle. 4314.75. Okay? So if that happened to be the lowest point from the time I place this order, then we would see my stop at 4324.75. Get it? You just add 10 points to it. Let's say the price comes down to 4312. Then my trailing stop would be 4322. You get it? So every time the price goes down further than what it has before, if it goes down to a new low, in other words, for the day, or since I placed my trailing stop order, if it hits a new low, then my $10 trailing stop will just parallel that, but $10 away or 10 points away. So if it goes to 4313, my trailing stop will be 4323. If the price goes down to 4312, my trailing stop is 4322, and so on. If it goes down to 4300, right, my trailing stop would be 4310. You get it? So every time the price goes down, my trailing stop is trailing behind it by 10 points. And why is that a big deal? Because you're locking in profits. Remember, I'm shorting this. So as the price goes down, I make more. My profits are going up. As the price goes down, my profits go up. That's shorting. And a lot of people struggle with the concept of shorting, but you can look up on your favorite search engine and what does it really mean to short, and wrap your mind around what shorting is. Okay? You're basically borrowing something you don't own. Okay? The broker basically kind of more or less lends you these, in this case, contracts. Okay? In reality, when it comes to futures contracts, no one's really lending you anything. It's a little bit different than stock, but just to keep the conversation simple, you're basically borrowing something you don't own. Okay? It's kind of like going to your neighbor and say, hey, I want to borrow a dozen eggs. And your neighbor says, no problem. Just make sure you give me back my dozen eggs, okay, at whatever some point in the future. I got to have my dozen eggs back. So you can't just have them for free. You got to give them back to me. So that's what shorting is in a nutshell, guys and gals. You're borrowing something with the promise you're going to give it back. Now, you might think to yourself, well, how do you make any money on something you got to give back? The number of eggs that you borrowed doesn't change, but the price of the eggs changed. Get it? Keeping it simple here, right? Everybody with me so far? If I go borrow 10 eggs from my neighbor, and he says, the only thing I ask you to do is you have to promise me to give me back these 10 eggs, and I say to my neighbor, no problem, I promise to give back, a dozen eggs. I promise to give back the dozen eggs. Okay? 12 eggs. But let's say that between the time that I borrowed from my neighbor the dozen eggs and the time I give it back, let's say the price of eggs went in my favor. Let's say in this case the price of eggs went down. Follow me? The price of eggs went down. Now guess what I get to do? I can go out somewhere else to some other neighbor and buy eggs at a lower price. And I can give him back those dozen eggs. And I get to keep the original dozen. Doesn't really matter about the original dozen. But basically, the difference in the price is where you make your money, is where you make your profit. So just think about that. You go to a neighbor, you borrow a dozen eggs. You promise to give him back a dozen. Let's say a week goes by before you give him back his dozen eggs. But meantime, let's just say in the whole neighborhood, the price of eggs has gone down dramatically. So you go out and get a dozen eggs from somebody else, and you give him back those dozen eggs. Right? It cost you less to go get those dozen eggs because the price went down, right? So that's the difference. The difference between the price that you got him, because he made you, when you went and got those dozen eggs from him, you had to pay to get them, right? They weren't free. So let's say you go to a neighbor, can I borrow a dozen eggs? He says, yeah, I'll give them to you for $2 a dozen. You say, okay. And he says, and you got to promise me also to give me back my dozen eggs. You say, okay. So, you could go out and get, the price of eggs may go down. And the whole neighborhood said the price of eggs went down. You find some guy 2 doors over, he's selling eggs cheaper than the guy that you got the dozen eggs from originally. He's not giving them to you for $2, he gives them to you for $1.50. So now you just got a dozen eggs for 50 cents cheaper than you got it from your other neighbor. Guess what you're going to do with those dozen eggs? You're going to go give them back to the other neighbor you got for $2, right? And he's a happy camper, got his dozen eggs back. Okay? You're a happy camper because you just made 50 cents on those dozen eggs. Okay? If you don't understand that, pause the video, rewind it, listen to it again. Write it down on a piece of paper. Okay? You went to neighbor number 1, you got the dozen eggs for $2. A couple days later, you went to neighbor number 2, you got a dozen eggs for $1.50. You gave back the dozen eggs to neighbor number 1. He's happy, got his dozen eggs back. You're happy because you made 50 cents on the deal. Okay, you follow me? Right. So in reality, don't worry too much about who you gave the eggs to. It's more about the price difference. That's all that really matters. Okay. Okay, that's what it really is. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's what it really gets down to is that you're borrowing something and you're waiting. In this case, we shorted something, and you're taking in this case 5 contracts instead of a dozen eggs, right? Or 5 contracts, futures contracts, and you're just waiting for the price to go down, and then you're going to give back those future contracts to wherever they came from. Doesn't matter where they came from. You just think about it. Some mysterious place you're going to give back the contracts. It doesn't matter. Someone else is going to pick up those contracts. It doesn't really matter. Okay. It's a little bit more generic. It's not so specific. You don't have a real person out there saying, give me back my 5 contracts. Okay, it doesn't work like that in the futures market. But just for ease of conversation, I thought I'd use that analogy, okay? So we can see here that today I'm very profitable. This took a while, about 3, 4, 5, 6 days for this to turn profitable for me, but it has turned profitable. And why? Because I saw that there were signs strongly suggesting back on, I think I actually did the video on July 6th, but I noticed on July 1st that there were strong indications that the market was going to pull back. And sure enough, it has. And look at those big red candlesticks going down. And I suspect, guys, look at the margin. I'm sorry, not margin, yeah. Look at the very bottom of the momentum. It's the blue, the very, very bottom of the screen, kind of in the middle of the screen. You see a little blue line, curvy line, and a curvy red line. That's called stochastic momentum. And look, it's pointing down, right? Their nose is pointing down. Okay. The forecaster just above it, it's already pointed way down, right? So it's forecasting the future. It's saying in the future prices are likely to go down. That's my own specific algorithm that I've modified and written myself. Seems to work most of the time. And the momentum is suggesting the same thing now. We're beginning to see momentum pointing down. I suspect this will continue down for a while. I don't know exactly how long. The low is supposed to be somewhere around July 22nd, somewhere around there, 23rd. So this could kind of bounce around a little bit, but I think it's going to come down definitely some more over the next few days. We might have some little up days or not as big down days, whatever. We'll see what this thing does. But remember, I said back, if you haven't watched my previous videos, you can go watch it and look in the description of this video, see the links. And you'll see in there I said this thing's gonna come down at least $100. I think it's gonna be more than that, or 100 points I should say. So 4384. I think we're gonna see 4284 probably pretty easily. I originally had my limit order to close at 4307, I think. But now that I've gone profitable, I've switched and just stopped my previous order and put in a trailing stop so that I can lock in profits as they go down. Okay? So that's the mini lesson today, guys and gals, on how you lock in your profits. Just remember, if your trailing stop is really tight, it'll probably close really quick. So you don't want it too tight. If you have it kind of a little bit wider trailing stop, yeah, you might give back some of the profits, but you know, as long as you're doing your math and you're taking the time to figure out the math, you're going to lock in some profits. So, you know, I'm giving it a 10-point spread, 10-point room here. It could come up and touch it. If it does, I'm taking a profit. I'm happy. I'm not going to cry about it. You know, I try not to get caught up in, I could have made more, I could have made more. There's nothing that precludes me from taking a couple more short positions if this one closes out and hits my trailing stop, right? If I really want to do that. Okay, video's getting kind of long, guys. I hope you really enjoyed the video today. Don't forget to subscribe and click that bell notification so you get notified of all the videos as I put them out. And give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. We'll talk to you all again real soon next time.